Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne, and today is a special podcast. Not bringing on any guests today. Lately, I've been bringing a lot of guests to the episode, and going back to old school. In the early days of doing this podcast in 2018, my focus was on education about Bitcoin and crypto, why this is important, and what people needed to know, how to protect themselves from scams, anything you think about around education. And so this episode marks an important benchmark in Bitcoin's history, and I felt it was important to do an episode. So at the time of this recording, but by the time this recording is published, actually that I've already passed, but on Monday morning, U.S. time, we will surpass the 20 millionth Bitcoin that will have been mined. 20 million Bitcoin will have been mined. And with that, it'll take another 114 years before the last 1 million Bitcoin have been mined. Now, wearing a shirt today, this is a new drop that's coming soon, 21 million. That's the total number of Bitcoin. That's the scarcity, the fixed supply that helps to give Bitcoin its core value. Now, there's other things around it. We'll talk about that in the episode, but that is what it is. So 20 million Bitcoin will have been emitted by the time this podcast is aired, and it's going to take another 114 years for that last 1 million of the 21 million Bitcoin to be mined. And why is that important? And also we'll talk about some, like, what really is that? And so that's why it's important when most people look at what's happening day to day Bitcoin. Price goes up, price gets down, people get scared, it's going to zero. There's always this, what we call FUD. And if you've never heard the word FUD before, it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's a lot of things put out there about Bitcoin. All the way from the early days, it's only used by criminals, it's used for money laundering, it's used by terrorists, to to recently Jeffrey Epstein, a Satoshi, which he didn't even try to get involved in Bitcoin until 4 years after the Bitcoin network was started. But Bitcoin is an open network. Anybody can get involved. Anybody can invest. And all he really did was invest in a Bitcoin development company as he ran an investment fund. And a small portion of that $200 million fund, which was less than $500,000, was invested into a Bitcoin fund. So clear that FUD out the way. But it just comes and goes, and people get this fear. They panic sell. They think Bitcoin's going to zero, and it always comes back stronger than before. It's never going down, not going back up. And anybody that's held Bitcoin for more than 4 years has always been very happy with that decision. So I'm going to talk about some other strategies today as well in terms of Bitcoin strategy. Now, I would separate Bitcoin and crypto. Now, Bitcoin is the first digital cryptocurrency that was successful. Now, there were other tries at cryptocurrency prior to Bitcoin, but none of them could work. There was always issues with either network, with centralization, or with what's called a double spin, where it's a digital item. And well, I can take one email and copy it and send it to 20 different people. You can't do that with digital money because it has to be one source of truth. And that's what Bitcoin solved. And so let's start with mining. Bitcoin is going to have the 20 millionth Bitcoin that have been mined. And there's a lot of misconception as to what mining is and what it isn't. Think of it as just running computers that are securing the network, that then every roughly 10 minutes or so, give or take, it fluctuates because difficulty adjusts. All these computers are trying to solve this randomly generated problem. And whoever solves that problem first gets a chance to verify that block of information that went through there and earn that block reward, which is reduced over time. And that's what's called the halving. So the halving started out first, as Bitcoin networks first started, 50 new Bitcoin were released every new block. So roughly every 10 minutes, 50 Bitcoin were released until 210,000 blocks, which is roughly around 4 years, which is why you hear about the 4-year cycle on Bitcoin. And so what happens, 50 Bitcoin every roughly 10 minutes or so. And then after 210,000 blocks, that reward gets cut in half. So it went from 50 to 25 over after that first 4 or so years in existence. And it happens again. We go through another 210,000 blocks, and it goes from 25 to 12.5. All right, and then we went from 12.5 to 6.25. And then the most recent halving, which we had not too long ago, we went from 6.25 to 3.125. And so that's what's happening with Bitcoin supply, which is why we've been able, over this time period from 2009 to now, have mined roughly 20 million Bitcoin, and then it's going to take another 114 years to mine that last 1 million Bitcoin. And that's, really it's tied to the scarcity. It's a fixed supply. Right now, governments around the world, especially in the U.S. and Israel, money is being printed right now to fund war. And that's one thing Bitcoin can do, is can make wars unaffordable, because money is printed. We experience inflation. It's blamed on supply chain disruptions and all this. we very rarely see prices come back down after these types of crises. Bitcoin is hard money. Bitcoin cannot be controlled by anybody. We can't say, oh, we're in an emergency, we need to print more Bitcoin. So what you think when you think of fiat currencies, which every country in this world has a fiat currency, which means there really is nothing backing that currency other than trust in that particular government, that monetary issuance. It's not backed by anything. It's not even backed by gold. The dollar has not had an actual gold backing for many years, and it was officially denounced back in the early 1970s that Bitcoin was no longer be redeemable for gold and silver. And I mean that the dollar was not going to be able to be redeemed for gold and silver. A little bit late here, so mixing up my words here. So with that, when you look at that, that is what gives Bitcoin so much potential, a great savings asset. It has a fixed code. The release supply cannot be altered. The total supply cannot be altered. You may think, well, when governments have issues and they feel they need more money, they just print more money out of thin air. And that dilutes the money you're currently holding in your physical bank accounts or in your actual physical wallet, right? When you think about Bitcoin, as the demand goes up, more and more people want to use it. They don't create more. Bitcoin is divisible. Every Bitcoin is divisible to 8 places behind the decimal point. So basically, Bitcoin can go to $1 million, and I can still send you $1, a few dollars worth of Bitcoin, because as the demand grows, we don't increase the supply. The supply is very divisible to where you can transact in smaller and smaller units. And that gives it a fixed supply, fixed scarcity, open network. Anyone has access to it. And so that's why Bitcoin is so valuable. Bitcoin has a lot of the properties that are seen with gold, but also has some benefits outside of that. We live in a digital world, right? So if I was in, let's just say, God forbid, I know friends right now, they're in different countries now that are under attack, that are having missiles and other things landing near them. Or say you live in Iran and you need to flee an oppressive government, or you need to flee because of war. If you have a stockpile of gold, how are you going to carry that with you? Bitcoin, most people say, oh, Bitcoin, you can leave with it on a flash drive, but actually smaller than that. Bitcoin is not stored actually in your wallet. It's stored on chain. And you have a key, a key that allows you to access and determine the ownership of that Bitcoin. And so if you had to leave at the last minute, you just either have to write down or remember a 12 to 24 seed word phrase, a backup phrase, and you can restore that wallet when you get where you're going. And I've heard multiple stories recently of people, friends of friends or mutual contacts that have had experienced that, whether they were in Ukraine, whether they were in the Middle East at some point, and that's really what it is. And also, Bitcoin is not restrictive. Anybody can have access to it. So when you hear about bad people using Bitcoin, guess what? Bad people use dollars every day. And so it's not about, the money is inherently neutral. It's how it's used. Money can be used for good. Money can be used for bad. And so that is another aspect of what it is. And Bitcoin demand is growing. Adoption is growing. I mean, you got to admit, I know it's been wild the last 10 years that I've been in it. We've seen from governments and banks basically bashing and saying Bitcoin's dead and Bitcoin's a scam and all this, to now those same people. In fact, in many cases, it's the same exact people that are now saying Bitcoin is the future. You've got the head of BlackRock saying Bitcoin's going to 700,000 soon, and not saying that you have to like the guy or not. I mean, I don't really have any feelings for him, but I think we're seeing Bitcoin adoption is growing to where it's open to anyone. Anybody, say in a rural village that has access to a basic smartphone can utilize Bitcoin, all the way to these powerful executives that see the power of Bitcoin and they want to be involved too. I mean, we have numerous Bitcoin ETFs here. Now, you know me, I always like to wear Bitcoin or other crypto swag. And I've got a shirt that actually says when they were lobbying for the Bitcoin ETF, and it says the only ETF I want is in the Fed, in the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve has been devaluing our money for many, many years. It's responsible for so many different problems in the world. And it really is, another phrase I hear around in the Bitcoin space that sounds cliche, but it makes sense, is fix the money, fix the world, right? If we fix the money, governments can't just print money and throw us into endless conflicts. That can't happen. If we can fix the money, then everybody has equal access to financial opportunity, levels the playing field, and it can make the world a better place. You make wars unaffordable, like I said. Corruption is a lot less rampant. And so is there still going to be bad in the world if everybody's using Bitcoin? Absolutely. But I still think that Bitcoin is our best chance. And so for me, because of that, people call and ask me, when Bitcoin's at 125,000, everybody was calling wanting to know where to buy it, how do I buy it, where can I get it, how do I get started, right? How much should I buy, right? Now, today, at the time of this recording, it's sitting at, I think, about 66,000. Let's see, just check. Yeah, 66,244. Nobody's calling. Well, I take that back. I did have somebody message me today because she's been following along. I haven't responded yet, but she's been following along and realizes it's a good time to buy. Most people are not interested in this, and you've got to understand, for me, it's not about the price day to day. Bitcoin is my long-term savings plan. Bitcoin has been my wealth accumulation plan. And because of that, I don't carry a lot of it around with me, right? I've got multiple redundant security practices just because of got to keep it secure. But also on top of that is I don't care about the price day to day. Yeah, it feels good when Bitcoin's was 125,000. And sometimes you can look at the price and say, like, God, it's going down. But I am buying. Literally, this is a methodology that I've been practicing and preaching for 9 years now. So I think it was around January 2017. I started my first weekly buy of Bitcoin, $50 a week every Friday. Now, set that and forget it. Most of these exchanges allow you to set a recurring buy. You don't have to think about it. It's just going to automatically execute every time. Now, over the years, I've changed services of where I buy the Bitcoin from, but that methodology has stayed true all the way then until now. So it doesn't matter what the price was. I've bought at every price level every week for the last 9+ years because it doesn't matter for me. I'm not selling it today. I'm not selling it tomorrow. And that brings me to a very important term about Bitcoin that you need to understand is DCA. And if you've heard of DCA, it stands for dollar cost average. Now, have I bought other Bitcoin whenever it dipped, or initially when I had an investment, I bought that, or maybe when I got an insurance check to fix my truck instead of fixing my truck, I may have bought some more Bitcoin. But that particular strategy, scrape out all the other buys I've done, and that particular strategy has been very successful over time. And I'm going to show you a resource that I use to do that. So DCA, if you hear DCA, it's dollar cost average. And you know me, I'm a swag guy, so I've actually got this shirt. You may have seen me on social media, pictures of it, but basically DCA BTC. Yeah, I mean, it may look like the label from a popular rap group, but that is the terminology, is DCA BTC. People want to know, should I buy 10,000, 50,000, 100,000? And most of the time they're talking in numbers that are very uncomfortable. If they were to say lose that money tomorrow, they'd be heartbroken. $50 a week, that's $200 a month. It's very little. And over time, that's turned into quite a bit. And that is the methodology. So someone asked me, should I buy Bitcoin? The answer is always yes for me. We always like to say, no financial advice. It's not financial advice. For me, it's a wealth accumulation. And I'm storing my value in Bitcoin because I see it's a scarce asset. Demand and utilization and adoption of it is only going up. It's not going down. Even when price is going down, user adoption is going up. And so it doesn't take a genius to see that over the long term what that picture paints for me. And so DCA, BTC, I'm going to share my screen and show you a couple of things that I utilize for this podcast. If you're listening to the audio version of this, make sure to jump into the podcast on YouTube. It's on the FIO YouTube channel. Make sure to check it out and see what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, and so what I have here is Bitcoin.org. Now, why did I start here? Because many people still don't understand the basics, and I always challenge everybody, the Bitcoin white paper is not long. So if you haven't read the Bitcoin white paper, go here, go to resources. You can go, get started with Bitcoin. It shows you how to accept Bitcoin. It's very simple. At the bottom, you see the white paper tab. I'm going to click on the white paper tab. And from there, it gives you the white paper. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There's a white paper. Who you're talking to. So many different languages this has been translated into. It's not a very long document. You can click on it. If I remember right, it's like 7 or 8 pages. I could have that wrong. It's been a while since I've actually gone to it. No, 9 pages. So it's 9 pages long. The last page is probably not even a full page. So yeah, right about that. It was just references. And so it's not very long. You don't have to understand everything in it, but just read the core concept, get the understanding of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin white paper, bitcoin.org. So make sure to check that out. Next thing I was talking to you about was DCA BTC, dollar cost average Bitcoin. And this is a website called DCABTC.com. I've been using it for many years to show people what it may be. So you can put in a purchase amount, how frequently it was done, how long it happened for, when did it start, and then you can see what that would look like. So let's just say I'll take mine. Okay, so let's say $50 weekly, accumulating for 9 years, starting on a specific date. And I remember roughly, I may be off by one pay period. Oh, let's see. Let's just say January 8th, 2008. And you can see what that has turned into. So roughly $50 a week. It has total invested was $23,500. That's $50 a week for 9 years. And you can see here that is sitting a little bit over 2 Bitcoin in value right now. And that shows the power of that set it and forget it. It's very similar concept to 401k back when we had a long-standing growth in the stock market, which is not saying we don't, but I don't think it's going to continue for much longer. You would put into a 401k and work for a company for many years, at least a lot of people would, and then when they go back and check their 401k, it's worth a significant amount just because of that. And so that's why Bitcoin can do the same. So you can put any information in here and see what happens. For some reason the calculation's off right now in terms of the thing it shows at the top, but it actually does show close to the right value in terms of Bitcoin over that 2-year period. Where can you buy this? So I have some recommendations. Most people will say Coinbase. Coinbase is good for your beginner, but for Bitcoin, I like to stick with Bitcoin-only companies. They make it super simple, and they're easy to do. So Swan Bitcoin is one that I utilize. Swan Bitcoin, they were running a promotion not too long ago where it was basically no fees for you first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases. But this is one you can also set it, forget it. Another feature I like about Swan is you can actually set it to withdraw at a certain threshold. So when the value hits a certain amount, you want to send it to your own wallet. Why is that? Not your keys, not your crypto, right? Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. If you don't have access to the private keys and someone else is holding it for you, if they go bankrupt or get hacked, you could lose access to that money. So that's why it's important. Bitcoin was designed for self-sovereign wealth. So why would you turn over that sovereignty to a third party? Like an exchange, always withdraw it to a wallet where you control. River is another one that's been very, very good lately. They have 0 fees on recurring buys, which is amazing. And so River is another one that you can do. So river.com, they also have an app. Both of these companies have an app you can download. So I'm not coming out for or against another one. I've been using Swan for a long time. River, I've heard a lot of people say good things about it. Another one I used to use is Strike. Now, Strike is another one very similar. You can buy Bitcoin, you can set recurring buys, ultra low fees. What I do like about this is being able to get, if you have a traditional paycheck where you're getting paid through direct deposit to your bank, you can set up to where you can get paid a percentage of that in Bitcoin. So you would be able to get your routing and account number from Strike, which they're partnered with a bank, and you set that as a direct deposit. Now, I know when I was getting direct deposit before I was working full-time in crypto, I would allocate a certain amount to each direct deposit account. And so say it's $200 a paycheck or $500 a paycheck, whatever you want it to be, you can set that in, put your account, writing an account number for Strike, and set it to where when it deposits that, it automatically converts it to Bitcoin. So every time I was getting paid from my employer, even though they didn't realize I was getting paid in Bitcoin, I was getting a portion of my pay in Bitcoin. And it's as simple as that. So it's another tool. Make sure to use it. Check it out. They're all very good. They're all free to get started, so check them out. See which one you like the best. Check out Swan, check out River, check out Strike, and then you go from there. And then the last thing I like to point out, this is something that I've actually earned thousands of dollars on since 2018, which is Lolly. Lolly is a shopping platform, a shopping aggregate platform that allows you to either download the mobile app or attach it to your Chrome browser or Brave browser. And anytime you shop at over 25,000 different stores, you can earn Bitcoin rewards by going through the Lolly app or the Lolly browser extension. You're still shopping on the main site. I've used it to book travel. I use it for many things over the years. And every time you check out, you earn Bitcoin. Now, not everyone's going to be the same. You see it says up to 30%. For instance, like at Lowe's or Best Buy, you may get like 0.1% or 0.5%. And it's not really much, so you're not going to buy it just because you're going to get Bitcoin rewards. But if you're going to buy it anyway, use Lolly. If you're going to book some travel anyway, use Lolly. You can see, you can scroll through the different shop stores and see everything that they have. But like I said, I have withdrawn so much Bitcoin from this platform since 2018. And funny, it started in 2018. My daughter, who is about to turn 21, at the time, she was much younger, right? In 2018, she wanted a pair of Crocs for Christmas, some specialty Crocs. And so I was like, oh, Crocs is on here. Crocs has the 12% rebate in Bitcoin. So I went through their website, bought the Crocs, got that Bitcoin, and it was on from there. And I use that every time I needed to make an online purchase because I'm going to make the purchase anyway. Why not check that out? So these are just some tools and resources that allow you to start stacking Bitcoin, start dollar cost averaging your Bitcoin. The scarcity. Bitcoin is becoming more and more scarce. The demand and the adoption is going up. So as I said before, it doesn't take a genius to know how that's going to play out in the long run. What's it going to be tomorrow, the next day? Hell, Bitcoin could be 50,000 or 40,000. I don't really care. And when you talk to people with that conviction, it doesn't matter what Bitcoin's going to be today or tomorrow because I'm not looking to sell it tomorrow. I am looking to hold it for the long term. It's going to be a wealth accumulation tool. And honestly, you know, what a lot of people are doing now, I actually saw someone that we work with and a friend, Luke Stokes, actually post earlier today about people aren't just buying the dip, they're borrowing against their Bitcoin to buy the dip. So there's now tools that allow you to borrow against it. Now, the problem with that is if Bitcoin continues to drop, your loan to value ratio, if it gets too tight, then they'll liquidate that Bitcoin that you gave as collateral to borrow money against. But if you do it, Bitcoin's low, and if you leave yourself a big cushion to where you're not risking everything, I'm not going to take all the Bitcoin I have and borrow against it, but I may take a certain amount to borrow more, especially when prices are down like they are now. So there's risks with that. So make sure you look into all the risk associated with that. But that's what's happening today. And honestly, that is, you think about it, what have wealthy people learned to do over time? They accumulate assets, wealth building assets that appreciate over time, and then they leverage that. When they need to get money, they don't sell them. You don't hear about wealthy people selling their assets to do this or that or start a company or whatever. They borrow against it. And so that's what we're looking to do. That's what it is here. So start thinking of Bitcoin as that wealth accumulation tool, and you'll see those tools. And those tools are going to get easier and easier. You can actually do borrow. You can actually borrow against your Bitcoin, use your Bitcoin as collateral on Coinbase and other platforms that are very simple to use. So make sure, like I said, everything is about risk. Make sure you understand your risk. But for me, understanding $50 a week is very low risk compared to people saying, okay, tomorrow I'm going to dump my life savings into Bitcoin and hope it goes up. Well, we've seen that path before. Bitcoin over the long term is going up, but it's a very rocky ride along the way, and it creates a lot of confusion, a lot of fear along the way. People don't have the same conviction that you do. Learned that early on. So it was 2018, 2019. I had a good friend, talked her into getting into Bitcoin, and that was when Bitcoin was around $6,000 or $7,000. Bought quite a few Bitcoin with that. But then Bitcoin slowly after that plummeted down to right around 3,200, and that person panicked and sold it, and then was mad at me because they lost it. I told her not to sell. It's not a good time. Market's down, and as we were having that conversation, the market was going down. And so now pretty much lost a friend. So make sure you understand that before you get into this, because the same conversations we had at 6,000 and 3,000, we're having at 60,000 and 30,000, and we're going to have them at 600,000 to 300,000. And so just remember that it's all relative, and keep things in perspective, and don't risk more than you're not saying willing to lose, but willing to maybe do without for a while. Because if you come out of, if the market drops and you're out of profit, then you need to continue to accumulate and wait for price to go up. And also that's a good thing, because when price is down and you're accumulating, you're lowering your average entry price. And so if you bought at 125,000 and now you're listening to this episode and Bitcoin at 66,000, if you haven't bought anywhere between 125 and now, chances are you might want to look at that, because that is a long-term accumulation strategy that'll help pay off. When Bitcoin does eventually go back up, you'll be back in the profit much sooner. So with that, that's my piece. I want to get back to the roots. This podcast started as an educational podcast. I want to teach people about Bitcoin and crypto and how to do everything, how to learn about the different topics, what they are, perspective, and also even how to prevent from scams. So with that, with your Bitcoin, protect your Bitcoin. Don't send it to somebody that you meet online, or somebody says they're going to, or even if you think you know them and you're chatting with them online, a lot of times it's found out that those people's accounts have been hacked, and they're pretending to be other people, and they're getting you to invest because they can double your money, triple your money. In some cases, they'll show you proof. They'll have you deposit money into this fake platform that looks real, and your profits. So the next thing you know, you dropped a few $1,000s in there, and you're worth tens of thousands of dollars. And you're like, oh, well, this is great. Let me put some more money in. And that's where the scam can happen. So there's a lot of that. So anything that's going to offer to double your money, triple your money, give you a guaranteed percentage you'll earn every day, make sure to stay away from those. No stranger out there is looking to help everybody by just giving away all the money or showing you how to make millions of dollars. What it is it turns into scams. And I've seen it really devastate people, heartbreak people. And it's not good. You want to catch it ahead of time. So make sure not to do that. And protect it, but continue to stack, continue to look at what you're doing. If you have long-term belief in where Bitcoin is going, then activity should mimic that. That's why I practice what I preach: dollar cost average every week. Whenever I get to a certain amount in that wallet, I withdraw it to my own cold storage wallet, and I continue to stack and continue to watch the market. But I don't care if I wake up tomorrow and the price has dropped from 66,000 to 56,000. You may have a moment of, oh crap, but who cares? Let's buy some more, get another buy going in, because I know the long-term trend of where this is going. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode. Let me know if you have any other topics you want to learn about. I've been doing educational topics for a long time, then started interviewing people that work in the industry so you can hear about what's being built. But I want to feature what's important. So if there's any topics out there that are important to you, make sure to drop a message. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.